All right, I think we can go ahead and just get started so we don't get too far behind on time. So thanks for coming to the second workshop. So tonight we're going to be doing some napkin drawing and getting some kind of feedback on your ideas. I know there's been a few emails just kind of asking for specific feedback. So tonight is kind of your opportunity to get that. So what we're going to go over is the homework from the last workshop was to submit your initial business model canvas. So a few people did that relatively early. So we're going to go over 3 or 4 of those tonight and give specific feedback on those kind of in front of the rest of the class so you can see what we're thinking when it comes to these and the kinds of questions that we'll ask. But then everybody who turns one in will get individual feedback kind of emailed to them. And then we're going to do a little napkin drawing activity where you draw out what your idea is, what you're working on, and then a business assumptions exercise. And then we'll go over the homework, which is just a little bit for the next workshop and a preview of what we'll be doing in that next workshop. So before we get started on that, just a reminder to please fill out the Google form. I noticed only about like half the people that were registered in Pralent had done the Google form. So just make sure that you do that so we have your team name, your description of your idea, and all of your team members. So only one form per team needs to be filled out. You'll list all of the team members and their information on that just to make sure they're getting all of the communications that we send out. I think we'd only gotten like 16 responses as of like yesterday. So if you could do that. Yep. Thank you, Arnold. It's okay if your idea isn't final. Put what you're working on right now, and if that changes, just submit another Google form later, or we can update it for you in our records. All right, so, and also just a reminder, we have the Discord servers where you can post any questions, chat with other participants and us. So if you have any questions about, what's going on in the competition, when the next workshop is, anything like that. And also, if you just are looking to get involved in entrepreneurship on campus in other ways, feel free to just post about, I'm looking for a club to join, anything, and just there'll likely be somebody else in there, or we can direct you towards other ways to get involved with entrepreneurship outside of the competition as well. So see it as your kind of like entrepreneurial community on campus when we can't actually get together. And then also feel free to keep emailing questions to Murillo at the BMC email. All right, so one of the homework assignments from the last workshop was to watch the Owlet IBMC video. So I just wanted to kind of see people's reactions to that. What did you find interesting or noteworthy about that video? Anybody, feel free to unmute yourself or type into the chat.
Those guys knew their product and numbers very, very well.
Yep. Anybody else notice anything? So one thing I thought was interesting was they talked a lot about the insights that they got from their customers and how that led to the pivots that they made. And I think somewhere near like the end of their pitch, they mentioned that they had talked to over 1,000 people, which is quite a lot of people, but they got a lot of insights from that, and their initial assumptions that they put into their initial business model canvas kind of transformed over the time of talking to all of those people. So as a part of our competition, we like to say, interview at least like 100 customers. So they did 10 times that amount. So think of all the insights that you get from each, 100 interviews that you're doing. And so we'll be doing an activity tonight that's going to help you list out all of those assumptions about your business model that you're going to need to validate or invalidate through those customer interviews. I see there's a question about where to find that video. Lola, do you have the link to that? Lola will put the link to it in the chat. It's like a 17-minute video. And that was at the International Business Model Competition, and they got first place in that, so. And the video is kind of why.
Yeah, so if I just may interject also, just again to remind people what Emily had just said. So they were the winners, and they are winners of the International Business Model Competition. And so obviously that bar is very high. I think to keep things in perspective, last year they had to cancel the competition, but 2 years ago, out of the 40 finalists, 3 teams from Purdue actually got accepted into the International Business Model Competition. And Emily, if I remember, 2 of them finished in the top 20 and 1 finished in the top 10.
Yes.
And the team that finished in the top 10, this was their first go around. And they basically, I don't say they learned everything, about the business model canvas and everything from our workshops. But they did end up interviewing a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. And for the IBMC, a big part of, if you watch that video, you'll notice that they're saying, it costs us this much money and this amount of time to, go through each of those steps. And so that's part of like the IBMCs, or it used to be at least the criteria that they had. So that's why they use, they talked about their pivots a lot, and also about how much they spent and how much time they spent figuring that out. And like our competition is kind of really similar to the IBMC in that focus on the customer discovery process and then the pivots that you make in your business model because of that. So were there any questions or problems that you had when you were filling out your initial business model canvas as the homework that you want to ask now? All right, so thanks to the people who did turn in their completed business model canvas. There's, I think, 3 or 4 of them that we got in time to review before today, and we'll go through those and give some kind of specific feedback on them. So I wanted to walk through those because this is the advantage to turning in the homework and doing it early, is that you get kind of this individual lengthy kind of feedback within the workshops on what you're turning in. But feel free, if you haven't turned it in yet, I saw several come in today, and if you want to continue submitting those, we will give individual feedback on each of those that's turned in, just so we're not waiting until you're halfway through the competition to give you any kind of feedback on what you're putting in your business model, so we can kind of help guide you one way or another. So I see there's a question. 2 ideas in your head. When do I need to choose? Oh, Arnold answered it. Yep. But does it matter, like, because you're going to start doing customer interviews, if you have 2 completely different ideas?
I think the only thing I would say is that as you're doing the customer interviews, you may find more positive feedback on one versus the other. And so that might help you decide which one to move forward with.
So the Google form is the thing that needs to be submitted by November 1st. Yeah, so that's just the day you need to sign up by. Nothing necessarily needs to be submitted. Nothing will be submitted like for the rounds of the competition until March or like late spring. But like by November 1st, be sure you've filled out the Google form and hopefully are also registered on Pralent. Yeah. Yes, in the last workshop, I sent out the fillable business model canvas, and I emailed it out as well. So if you're on the email list, you should have received that, but I can email it out again. All right. So now I'm going to open up one of the canvases that was submitted. Let me see. All right. Can everybody see that pretty well? See what's written there? Good. All right. I gotta minimize stuff here. All right. So this is Team 17. I'm not sure if anybody, raise your hand if you're on that team. Okay. All right. We have a couple people here. All right. So we wanted to just go through some of the general feedback on that. So one of the things we noticed is over in the customer segments here, you have an interest in space and or music. And to us, those are two very different interests. So does your product combine interests? Like, who is your customer really? Are they interested in music or are they interested in space, or both of them? Combines both of them.
I can speak on behalf of my team. We actually are taking the idea from our engineering 131 project forward, like in this competition. And our challenge was to design a sound-based toy for 3 to 5 year old children. So we designed a space mat which has the planets and which has the solar system. And we one of our teammates, he actually wrote an original song and recorded it to go along with it. So we have the song that goes along with the toy. So there are like multiple things that the children learn while playing with the toy, like gross motor skills and like hand-eye coordination, etc. So that's why we have both of them.
Okay. All right. And then another comment that we had is it says kids lacking social skills, but also says young children between the ages of 3 and 5. And just a question is, how do you know that they're lacking social skills? Like if they haven't maybe gone to school yet, how would you know as young as 3, like, that they're lacking social skills?
So we haven't really had a lot of testing done yet from the uh, initial feedback that like all of our like experiences from what we did in engineering 131 and from the prototype testing that we did do at the Ben and Maxine like school in Purdue. We did have the educator tell us that they actually helped us like identify like the benefits of the idea, that they were like, okay, like this does help students like uh, not just like hand-eye coordination, but like it teaches them a lot of like social skills and like discipline to like wait in line. And one of the educators, they also told us that this could possibly help students lacking social skills or like who are struggling with speaking out to other students, or like just who usually play alone but like seeing everyone else play, like they are joining them. So this is something that's uh, not exactly proven, but like this is purely from the feedback that we've received till now.
Okay. So, and just to preface like the questions that I'm asking, you may not know the answer to it right now, but kind of the reason that we'll be asking these questions is to help guide you like what you need to figure out when you're doing your customer interviews, what you're going to need to validate or invalidate in each of these boxes. And then another comment just about the customer segments is you list the kids as your customer, but is it actually the kids who are going to be buying this and paying for this, or is it their parents? Or is it schools? Is it preschool?
I can let other teammates also answer, like some of my
Yeah,
other.
yeah, I can say something about this. I'm also on Team 17. It that is something that we should fix. It's going to be the parents or the schools or something else like a daycare or a after school center, that kind of thing. So that is something we'll fix. Thank you.
Arnold, did you want to add anything to the feedback?
The only thing I'd add is as you're describing the customer segments, try to be as detailed as possible. So for example, if it's going to be a parent, it's going to be a parent with one kid, with two kids, what demographic, what age, what ethnicity, what income level, what education level, et cetera, et cetera. If you're gonna use daycares, one of the things Professor Lionel always says is daycares don't buy things from you, people buy things. So who in the daycare would be responsible for purchasing items like that? And understand what their role is and what you imagine they look like. So is it the owner of a daycare that's got 30 kids, or is it the director of something in a school that's got 500 kids? And also think about what size customer segment of kind of daycares you would be looking at. This will just help you focus on who to talk to first. And you can list them all and you'll find positives and negatives for each different customer segment.
Yeah, that makes more sense. We're definitely taking feedback on this. Thank you so much.
All right, I think we'll move on to a different example, just so we show a few. Let me bring it up. Are you guys seeing the Kids Love Fun one or still seeing the old one?
We're seeing the Kids Love Fun.
Okay. So I don't think the jingle's on here, but we can still go through it just so everybody can kind of see the kind of feedback that we're giving on these. So we thought that the customer segments were good because, like we were just talking about with the last one, they showed the users are the kids who don't like to brush their teeth, but the customer is actually the parents of those kids. But some other feedback is with the product itself, how do you know that the kid is actually brushing their teeth and not just moving it around so that it seems like it seems like they're brushing their teeth? So kind of some technical questions about how it works, but mainly kind of what is the problem that we're trying to solve here. So maybe since Shingle's not here, if anybody has a guess just from kind of looking through this, maybe looking at the value prop, what problem do you think that this product is trying to solve? So do you think the problem is kids aren't brushing their teeth, or the parents just not knowing that the kids are brushing their teeth, that it's not fun? Oh, go
It
ahead.
seems like the problem here is just that kids don't want to brush their teeth, and it's intending to solve that by gamifying it somehow, the details of which are kind of curious.
Yeah. And so another thing that we pointed out about this was in the channels, pediatric dentists would be kind of your number one channel for getting this kind of product out there, because they're going to be the ones promoting it to parents that come in. If they notice, hey, your kid's not brushing your teeth, and the parents are like, yeah, they hate it, then the dentist can then be like, oh, I know of this cool product that can help make it a more fun experience for the kids and make them more likely to do it, something like that. And then with the revenue stream, the hardware sales, it just kind of be more specific. What does hardware sales mean? What are you selling there? So kind of overall, I'll go over this in a little bit because I did look through all of the other business model canvases that were submitted kind of today, and that's kind of a feedback point for all of them, is to be more specific in each of the boxes. And as you go through your customer discovery and you're validating, invalidating, it's going to help you be more specific. Once you go out and talk to who you think your customer is, you'll kind of drill down to more specifically who that really is and what is it that they want and what value they want. So it'll help you doing your interviews to be more specific in future iterations of your business model canvas. Arnold, did you have any feedback to add to this one before we go?
No, I think that's why we go to the next one.
All right. All right. So then this one is Team Skywalkers. Is anybody in that team here? Raise your hand or say in the chat. Yep. Cool. All right. So our main feedback on this one was just looking at your value prop. It's kind of hard to tell what you're doing or looking at the whole thing overall. So it's currently unclear to us, and we should be able to kind of look at the value prop and somewhat figure out what you're doing. Like, is it an app? Is it a product? Like, if we looked at it long enough, we could figure it out. But thinking about how your business model canvas will eventually be shown to judges, they should be able to get a pretty good, clean idea of what you're doing by looking at it. And we just kind of didn't get that from looking at this initially. So does anybody from the team want to kind of just briefly explain what your idea is?
So like honestly, right now we don't have like the specific idea. We just have a general one because we all have different, like we have the same topic, which is like food production and trying to implement it in a wider market. But at the same time, everyone has different ideas. And since this was a draft, we didn't think of like a specific one. That's why there's like all the ideas implemented in the model and not just one.
Can you repeat that? I didn't understand what you meant by food production.
Yeah, so we want like our main topic or what we're aiming for is like the food market, and we want to make something related to improvement in food or improvement on food waste or improvement on the global warming agricultural parts. So it's like the general topic of the food market, and yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you're very generic.
Yeah,
Like
right
we
now.
want to help feed the world.
Yes, exactly. But like right now, we haven't defined a specific idea. We just have like just have the market we want to work on, which is food market.
Do you have any idea of a specific customer segment that you would be like interested in serving, where you could at least narrow down your customer and then go talk to them about what their problems are and how you can solve them?
We don't. In this very moment, we don't.
So the only thing, so my recommendation would be, how big is your team?
We're 5 people.
5 people. And
Yeah.
if the 5 of you kind of have different ideas, one thing you can do is kind of split it up and say, okay, well, let us each take a value proposition, one of the 5 that you have listed there, and one of the customer segments.
Okay.
And it's kind of like, as a team, divide into 5 now, and then go interview, even just a dozen people in that customer segment, and then come back, meet as a team, and figure out, like analyze the data.
Okay.
And then you may find, again, as you're talking to people in these segments, that it is something you want to pursue, or it might not. And that might give you some ideas of how to start to narrow your focus.
Okay, so basically like each one of us trying to do it by ourselves and then see which one can be most implemented on, right?
Right, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That could help us a lot.
But these are all very, very broad.
Yeah, they are.
I'm just trying to look like, for example, your fourth one, minimizing waste. Do you mean, again, just for clarification, do you mean minimizing waste of half of the food we buy is thrown away because we don't eat it? Or do you mean, yeah, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, it's exactly what you just said.
Okay. And so then again, you can immediately look and say, okay, well, is it individual households like us, like my family, or even, as a college student, you have access to, all the food courts, and they would probably be very interested in talking to you about it and figure out, okay, well, how much food is wasted at Purdue as a starting point? And, whether it's dorms, the food courts, the co-ops, fraternities, things like that, there's plenty of different segments around campus.
Dave, did you
Okay.
have something to say? I see your hand raised.
Yeah, Emily, I like the discussion is quite interesting. So I was just going to say, maybe perhaps as a team, they could look at what is affected according to each one's perception of what they want to solve. So
Okay.
at this stage of what is affected, essentially not looking at who. Yes, it can include who, but that's people. But what is affected gives you a really broad perspective so that it can be a thing that is affected within the food, either production or consumption chain, or it can be a process, or it can be an activity, or it can be an event. And so now when you define, you crystallize by saying what is affected, you're literally crystallizing a potential problem so that it becomes very clear. But what that now enables you to do is to then say, okay, is it going to be a psychographic issue? For example, what is affected? Is it something that has to do with lifestyle, with values, or with interests, or with a social status within the food production? For instance, if it's food consumption, certain restaurants can be a la carte menu restaurants, and people go there not necessarily because they are hungry, but it's also a social status. Yes, they serve good food, but it's also a social status. So what is it that you would be, say, in your business idea, solving there? Or is it,
Okay.
yes, or is it something that is behavioral? And what do we mean by behavioral? So we literally saying, okay, whatever is affected, is it is it influenced by customers' behavior and interactions with your company? In other words, if it's food production, are you dealing with how do people behave or produce their vegetables in small gardens, in villages? Do they interact, for instance, with your company from a perspective of the best ways or methods of producing? So are you dealing whatever is affected? Is it a behavioral process element? And I mean, part of this tool that I developed has actually addresses this, but on like 10 matrix, matrix criteria,
Yeah. Okay.
psychographic or geographic
Yeah.
or behavioral. Whatever is affected will become crystal. And from there now, you can actually say that is the problem we're solving. And therefore, the value proposition almost automatically is derived out of it, because once you say this is affected, your value proposition should be you're solving it, and you're solving it in a ABC manner or in a particular way. That's just what I wanted to contribute.
Wow,
Thanks, Dave.
that's awesome. Thank you so much. But I have a question for you. When you
Mm-hmm.
talk about the behavioral part, we wouldn't have to produce a product itself, but something like you were saying, a plan to help this behavioral aspect. So I just wanted to ask in general, do you think it's better to produce like a product itself or rather a plan for behavioral things? Like what do you think is most valued when we pass and when we present?
Well, it's always in the eye of the beholder what is of most value, what is most valuable, and obviously, what do we mean? It's in the eyes of the consumer, So,
Okay. Okay.
so the
Okay.
so the importance of what you are solving, essentially, its importance is measured by how important it is to whoever is consuming it. And maybe perhaps say, to give an example from one of the canvases that I just saw, the one about Jingo and the children's dental thing. And one of the channels, they talked of dentists, right? Uh, so behavioral wise, is there a possibility that kids have got greater immediate interaction from when they are born with a general healthcare practitioner that looks after their entire health? The person that when they have a cough, they go to the family doctor. And so could it be possible that behavioral patterns, and this could also come in even with the canvas which talked about a learning, a disability learning tool. So the behavioral patterns, who quickly identifies them, that is closest to what is affected, and who then might become an influencer towards channeling that product to the customers. So the tool that I have,
Dave,
kind of like,
not to cut
yeah,
off a good
sorry,
conversation, but just in the interest of time, I think we should move
sure,
on
yeah,
to the
sorry.
first activity. So just a summary of all the feedback for all of the canvases. And like I said, we'll email out to anybody who's emailed us their canvas, we'll email back specific feedback. But just some overall feedback for everybody. Like we said, your value prop should be describing, specifically what value you are providing kind of over your competitors or that doesn't exist currently to your customers. And we should be able to kind of look at that and kind of quickly figure out what you're doing. And then also be more clear about what problem you're trying to solve. And I think that'll help you with filling out all of your boxes. Is if you know in the back of your mind what problem you're solving and who you're doing it for, then that will help you be more clear and be more specific in all of those boxes. So the next activity here is, does anybody know what a napkin drawing is? It's kind of self-explanatory. It's a drawing that you put on a napkin. If you were just going to draw out your idea using, not too technical jargon, like you want to use kind of universal images that people understand, like the three little circular kind of bars for, wireless. People see that symbol, they know what that means, they can figure it out. So a napkin drawing will help you to communicate what your product or service or your idea is and what it does, but not deep into the technical how it works. And so you want to avoid any technical jargon that anybody outside of your field would have no idea what you're talking about. So for this activity, I've created, I think there's like 15 breakout rooms. I can create more if necessary, but you can put yourself into, I think I'll open up all the rooms now, and you can join a team, make your own. So if you have other teammates here, join a room and use the whiteboard feature to draw out your napkin drawing. So you can use the whiteboard by clicking the share screen. Once you get into the breakout room, click the share screen, and then there's whiteboard, and you can draw on that. And then you'll also be able to save that as an image. If you don't want to use the whiteboard and you want to just physically draw it out, feel free to do that. But just know you'll have to kind of present that quickly when you come back. So take a picture of it or something that you'll be able to share on the screen. So make it pretty high level. You can put a few keywords. But don't basically write out a paragraph explaining what it is. You really want it to be a drawing and a picture. You'll have roughly 10 minutes. We might do a little bit less to draw it. There's a button when you get into the room to call for help. So feel free to do that. if you want to draw it out and you don't want to use the whiteboard and you're a solo team, feel free to hang out in the main room here with us too if you have questions as you're doing it. And then when you get back, we'll get through as many as we can in the time that we have of people presenting theirs, and then the rest of us will try to guess what your idea is without you saying anything. So go ahead and join a breakout room with your teams and start working on your drawing.
So my idea that I mentioned earlier that I was looking to pitch is not really feasible to draw out on paper, but could I pitch it right now in like a minute or two, if that's okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right, so basically, it's fundamentally a social media idea. We spend time outside, we spend time in populated places, walking past people every day. Everyone you walk past is a potential connection. They could be useful as a business partner, a friend, or a relationship, whatever it is. But the fact is, we walk past way more people in our everyday lives than we ever interact with. So to me, it seems like a bit of a waste how many people we walk past without ever talking to. So the idea behind my app would be to have everyone install it, and it would keep track on people's interests, their activities. It would be kind of a big data sync, keeping track of what everyone's up to, and have some way to, the key behind it would be to have some way to predict whether or not two people would make good friends. And basically people with this app turned on whenever they want it to be turned on. And they're just, if you walk past someone who this app thinks would be a good potential connection for you, this app would give you like a little distinctive buzz or something of that sort and tell you, hey, there's someone nearby who might be a good connection. We suggest you say hi, something like that. So basically just lowering the barrier of, or the stigma of saying hello to a stranger on the street, because you might make a good connection.
So everyone would need to have the app in order for it to, send them the notification when they're nearby.
Yes, it would. That does pose a marketing challenge, but I think that could be feasibly solved by marketing it like it. There's a critical, I guess, user density, which is required for something like this to work out. So it would be useful to start to initially release this on like a small, densely populated area, for instance, a college campus. Same way that, for example, Facebook took off really quickly because, they limited it to the college campus where news goes around quickly, people talk, and it's a lot easier to market things virally that way than if you just release it to a general population.
Andrew, it's not clear to me what problem you're trying to solve.
Well, the problem is something of like, I know a lot of myself included, a lot of the people that I know, we feel that we're kind of missing out on like a lot of the people who are here. Like we come to a school of 30, 40,000 people, and there's so many people out there who could be interesting to meet and interact with, but it can be kind of limiting when you're just in your friend group, and it can be difficult to say hello to strangers because they don't know you, and there's nothing to help, I guess, facilitate interactions between strangers. So you only end up meeting the people who like you're going to class with or you're going to an actual activity with. There's just so many people out there that it feels like it could be helpful to facilitate people talking to each other just out in nature, basically.
So I don't think I'm in your demographic, but that doesn't resonate with me. It's still, I'm trying to still understand, is it people are shy and so you're trying to help overcome that, or people have trouble making friends?
Really, it would just be for anyone who wants to meet more people, regardless whether it's just like friends or business connections or relationships. It would be for anyone who's looking to meet more people and just wants to use their, free time to go out, and doesn't even have to be designated walking around time to meet people. It could even just be like if you're on your way to something and you're not in a particular hurry, and this app is like, oh, we found someone who's like literally across the street from you, also not in particular hurry, and we think it might be a good match. The app would buzz, and then you would know that there's someone here who might be worth talking to.
I kind of get where you're going with it, but at the same time, if your customer that you have in mind is somebody that maybe has a hard time reaching out to people and making friends, like I could see myself walking by somebody getting the buzz that there's somebody who I might have shared interests with nearby, but I'm still too introverted to walk up to that person and be like, "Hi, I got a buzz that we have similar interests. Like, do you want to hang out?" So is your customer a person who's even likely to do anything with that? You get what I'm saying?
It doesn't quite. I feel like it. There are definitely a particular sect of people who this would apply more to, those who are looking to meet more people and who are not afraid of saying hello to someone they've never met before. But I think it does provide value regardless, because there are always people out there who are looking to meet people and make new connections.
I would suggest like going out and talking to people that are in that customer segment that you think you're serving, and kind of ask those questions. Like, would you be, if you got a buzz that somebody was near you that had similar interests, would you talk to them, or figure out what their problems actually are, because it may not be that they don't have the data on the other person in order to know if they want to be friends with them.
Okay, sounds good. I'll keep thinking on that.
And for ideas like Andrew's, how are we supposed to make a napkin drawing?
That's the challenge.
Yeah, that's kind of the point of it. Is I actually was envisioning, because he said it wasn't feasible to draw it out. So as he's explaining it, I'm drawing in my head what it could be. So there is a way to draw everything. It's just, is that drawing going to make sense to other people? So I think we're a little bit behind schedule, and I want to make sure we get to our other activities. So I'm going to broadcast a message to everybody in the rooms to try to finish up their drawings so we can get back to that.
Yeah, another way to think of this as Pictionary. There's some really difficult words in Pictionary that people end up drawing. And if you're creative, you can find a way.
I probably use too many words in that case.
Yeah, I guess I should have described it as Pictionary. Maybe that would help people.
That just occurred to me.
Yeah. Alyssa, you should be able to save it, or when you share your screen, you should be able to just share Paint. So what you've put in there. I hope people remember to save their whiteboard. Does it automatically save the whiteboard image when you leave a room? I think it does.
It might.
I think I've only used a whiteboard in a meeting like once, but I wasn't the one sharing my screen, so it didn't save to my files. All right, I'm going to bring everybody back, and then we'll start. We'll have a few people present. We won't get through everybody for sure.
Any volunteers to go first? Kunal?
Yeah, could I go ahead?
Yep, go ahead and share your screen.
Sure. Okay.
So the goal here is he's going to show the screen their napkin drawing, and we're going to try to guess what their concept is.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll just.
So actually,
And-
kind of my
Okay.
picture here, actually.
Yeah. And
This
don't
picture.
say anything. Don't describe
Yeah,
anything.
okay.
Just put it up and let people start kind of yelling out or typing in the chat their guesses on what your idea is.
So improving student-professor feedback somehow? Makes me think of Piazza.
I'm stuck on TAS, trying to figure out what that
I think
is.
it's TAs.
Oh, TAs. Okay.
TAs.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got professors, TAs, students, all on the computers.
It's funny that the professor only sends out information, doesn't receive any.
Oh yeah, I forgot to have double arrows on some of them, but yeah.
Is it an automatic system for compiling this? I mean, that's the
No.
one thing that I can't tell from this is if it's automatic or if it's just
Okay.
a tool that compiles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It looks like it's some sort of software that allows the professor and the TAs to better communicate with the students about their strengths and weaknesses.
Or maybe that thing in the middle, like a report. So it generates a report, like the student picture, and then it has their strengths and weaknesses.
All right. So you want to briefly
should
tell us
I go
what it
ahead?
is? Yep.
Yeah, I'll try to do the best I could. So right now, like people are asking also what's Canary. So Canary is generally like our idea for the company right now. So what it's like a software company, like it's a homework software company, which is like so for people who are here who have like been through math classes, which I believe most of us have, we have used Lon Kappa, we have used Pearson, and we know like it gets the job done, but there are like a lot of things it can improve on. Like Lon Kappa, for example, it was made in 1990s and you're still using it, so it's pretty interesting. So my idea and mine and Tushar idea, he wasn't able to come, but our idea is that we're gonna have a homework system in which we're gonna people can see their strengths and weaknesses live. So like while you're solving your homework, you can go through one chapter, go through next chapter, and each question based on your performance, it'll note down what you're good at, what you're bad at. So when push comes to shove, and it's like you get closer to the exams, you can see you don't have to go back and redo like your homework or go through past papers or something. You can just see from what your strengths and weaknesses are, and you can save time practicing for exams. And we're also trying to create a sort of system in which TAs, professors, and SI can all use our software platform. Like, for example, there's so many features that I feel like Lon Kappa and Pearson are missing. Like, for example, you feel like sometimes a question is wrong. So like, what do I do now? You get a bit confused. So we're trying to pinpoint immediate feedback and help students save time while doing their homework.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else want to volunteer to go next? How about the team that was in room 13? Where'd you go?
I'm working on pulling up the picture that we had, so
Okay.
give me a minute.
All right.
If another team has one ready, they can go ahead and go while I get this up.
All right. Anybody else want to volunteer?
I don't mind going.
All right. Sounds good.
Cool. Can you guys see it?
Yep. Anybody feel free to shout out your guesses of what it is.
Airbnb, but for parking. Which is actually sounds like a good
Seems
idea.
like
If
some
that's
sort
what
of
it is.
some sort of marketplace at events for parking.
Yeah, I was gonna say like an eBay auction that would increase the price of parking spots or let you sell your parking spot based on how many people want to park.
Maybe an application where you can buy parking tickets for any and all events. Like,
All right. I think I saw some head nodding, so I think we already figured out what
I
it
wasn't sure.
was.
Was I supposed to just say it? Okay. Whoever was first, that was exactly right. So it's supposed to be something kind of like Airbnb, but for parking. And the idea is, particularly when you have events, there's this huge surge in demand that the area is usually not designed for. So if you just take Purdue football games, for example, you wouldn't think a place like Purdue would have parking problems, but then game day comes around and I have to park a mile and a half away and walk my way to the stadium. And so the idea is, well, there's a lot of residential areas right next to the stadium, and there's a lot of sort of large event, even Lucas Oil and some of the places in Indy where some businesses and some residential areas could list parking on their property and people could park there. So that's the general gist.
So this is just a question. How is that different than like Park Whiz or something like that? Is it because like residential, like they can put up spots like in their driveway or something? It doesn't
Yeah,
have
the
to.
main difference is a lot of the other ones typically just partner with garages and don't really partner with residential areas. And the other issue is a lot of those guys try to go for long-term parking. And so a lot of people typically don't want to rent out space for like a month or a week, for a long period of time. But if it were for an event, so every Sunday or Saturday, you have someone coming in, they're on your property and then they're gone. What we found so far is a lot more people are comfortable doing that than listing, monthly parking or things like that, which is what the other guys focus on, mostly with garages and established sort of parking places already.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is room 13 now ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Awesome. I think we'll do one more and then we'll need to move on to the next exercise so we have some time. Anybody have ideas?
Music, but in space.
Space music.
You can send your favorite songs out to different planets.
So I think we saw the business model canvas for this earlier, so we might have more of an idea of what it is in our heads just because we saw that. Or maybe that's just me. All right, do you want to just describe your idea real quick?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and describe it. Pretty much, I feel what we're missing is like a little kid playing on it or something like that. But our idea is called the Space Mat. It's kind of like a children's educational toy that teaches children about not only outer space, but also allows them to work on their gross motor movements and their social skills with allowing, taking turns, We're also planning on putting like facts about planets and stuff on there just to increase their interest in not only like music, but also like science and space, especially at a young age.
So what actually happens is like the kid will jump from planet to planet along with the song that's playing. That I made a song specifically for it that has the planets to the music of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and they'll jump from planet to planet, maybe sing along, maybe not, up to them.
Right. Okay, so just in the interest of time, I think we'll just go ahead and move on to the next activity because I think it'll be helpful. I'm going to drop this Word document. Where does it say disconnect? Yeah. Let me. Lola, can you put the business assumptions exercise file into the chat? For some reason, it won't. It says network disconnect and won't let me.
Where do I find that?
I sent it in Teams.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure why it's not letting me do it. Real quick, I'll share it on the screen. So in our next workshop, we're going to be learning about the customer discovery process and how to talk to your customers to gain insight. So this exercise is the business assumptions exercise. And this is going to help you list out all the assumptions that you have basically through answering these questions about your business. And that will help you design the experiment that you're going to be conducting when you go out in those customer interviews. So these are kind of hypotheses that you have about who your target customer is, the problems that they're facing, how you can solve it, why they can't solve it today. You're making all of these assumptions, and then when you go into your customer interviews, you'll be kind of asking questions that are designed to kind of invalidate or validate what your hypothesis is. So this document is a Word document that just lists questions. You probably won't have time tonight to get through all of them, but we'll spend about 10 minutes filling this out, and then we'll come back and talk about it a little bit. I'm not sure if you want to break out into your breakout rooms or just kind of stay in here so you can ask questions as you're going through. Lola, were you able to find it and send it? Cool. So Lola posted that in the chat. So you should be able to start filling that out. And just so you're aware, one of the homework assignments is going to be to turn this in. So you'll be able to start it here in class and then just have to finish it up and email it. So let's spend the next 10 minutes filling this out, and you can just do one per team. If you want to stay in here, feel free to use the chat, private chat, to message with your team too if you want. And if you have multiple ideas, I know there are some people who weren't sure on their idea. I know there was one team that had kind of several ways in which they could go. Maybe one person can kind of pick one idea and start filling that out. Pick a customer segment and start filling out the problems that you think that customer would have and what solution you could have to solve that. If that makes sense. You can just talk if you would like, Alyssa. Or if you want to share your screen, you can. I think I'll have to stop. Do you have something to share on your screen or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have something on Paint. So should I just talk my way through it?
Yep.
And everyone can see this. Okay.
Yep.
So my idea was to help combat food waste, either on like Purdue's campus or just in general, like from grocery stores. So my idea was to basically get all of the food waste, or all of, like, I guess the ugly foods that people throw out, or just ones that are expired, and to use it to make like a new restaurant or a new food place for either homeless people or just people in general. And yeah, that's basically it.
So I know this idea has percolated a lot in the sense of, particularly I was thinking with restaurants where, kind of once it hits the expiration date or whatnot, then they have to throw it out. And a lot of it has to do with regulation, where even though, plenty of homeless people or other people could use the food, like I think by law they have to throw it out for health reasons.
Oh,
And so
okay.
that's been one of the challenges.
Yeah, I think so.
Like I think, like for example, I remember it was something like there was a catering company that made a bunch of food, and then at the last minute the event was canceled, and like by law I don't think they're allowed to give it away or give it to, they can't resell it, and I thought they weren't allowed to give it away legally. So I remember also reading a story somewhere, like there was a grocery store or a restaurant where what they would do is they would put the unused or like expired food like on a table next to the trash can, and then like the homeless people would go get it because they weren't allowed to distribute it. And so they're kind of finding a loophole there.
Okay.
And then I do know, like there is a company I saw an ad for that does, and this may not be related to what you're thinking about, was doing something with like ugly fruit, where, obviously when the farmers grow it, all of it doesn't come out like the perfect apple that you see in the ad, but the grocery store won't sell the imperfect fruit and vegetable. And so then they're trying to do a resale where they get the, ugly looking, even though there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
But this is a good problem. I think this is one we definitely have, and there's ripe opportunity here for you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody want to volunteer to share your screen and some of your answers? It's hard without being like in a physical room to like see people sitting together and know that they're on a team. Maybe moving forward for the workshops, if you could rename yourself to what team you're on, like put in parentheses behind it, like Team 17 or Skywalkers or something, just so until I learn whose name belongs to what team, that'll help me a lot to know. And grouping you together in breakout rooms and stuff, that would be super helpful. All right. All right, who have we not heard from tonight? Lena, do you have something you can share?
Hi.
Hi.
So I was struggling with getting the document, and I was actually just messaging Lola about that. I can answer parts of it based off of what you were sharing, like your screen.
Yeah, hang on. Let me
If you
share
could-
it and you could, yeah.
I don't have answers for everything yet.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could just maybe go through the first few questions and then the next group can list.
Okay.
There. Yep.
Yeah. So regarding my target customer, I'm not entirely sure about this. So kind of what I envision is, just to cap off like my project or what I envision doing. We're in the midst of a pandemic. Learning has been hampered for youth of all ages. And a big aspect of learning is hands-on, engaged, interactive learning. And with everyone being virtual, it makes it difficult, obviously, to integrate these components into the youth's learning experience. So I'm looking at creating like interactive modules for, say, K through 12. And these modules would be kind of mailed off to kids in the form of like a kit. So I'm not sure if my target customer is that kid or if it's actually the parent that would be purchasing it, or the school or whatever institution that's getting this out to the kids. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we were talking about this a little earlier in the workshop of the kids will be the users of it, but they won't be
right.
your customers.
The actual customer.
Customers the one who does the financial transaction.
Okay. All right. So in that case, I guess a primary customer, I mean, it could be many, but would be parents, parents of kids that would be engaging in these activities. And the problem that the customer would want to solve is, engaging their child in active learning. Does that answer that question?
It kind of sounds like the problem is like due to moving to, virtual learning or because of COVID or other circumstances, they're not able to have those hands-on learning experiences. So you're solving that problem, the lack of hands-on learning due to COVID or whatever the situation may
yes.
be.
Do you mean hands-on like a lab?
Yes. So I mean like learning labs, like learning like little modules where they get a science kit, for example, and then they can either build something, they can do an experiment, and this can be tied directly to curriculum that they're working through, or it could be totally independent, right? It could be like a side project, but something that gets the kid engaged in whatever it is, whatever concept they might be learning in the classroom, or even just reinforcing concepts that they may have been exposed to, right? And now having to integrate that into some sort of activity that they're getting to build or design something, or just work with. I'm not sure if that's making sense, but that's kind of what I envision.
Right. So I think that you kind of answered the question of my customer's need can be solved with, yeah. And so why can't they solve it today?
A lot of times the parents may not have the expertise or the time required to sit down and do a little lesson planning or come up with like an interactive activity. So this is literally just handing them all the materials and instructions that they would need, and the child can kind of go off and do this on their own. The parent can also work with the child and, do this lesson actively with them, but it's really designed to provide kids like an independent learning process if that's what the parent wants to provide them and doesn't have the time to sit down and go through the activity with them.
So this is jumping ahead a few questions, but who's your competition in the space? Is there anybody that's currently making things like this, providing an experience like this?
I have seen a couple of different ones. But the thing is, like some of the activities, they're pricey, and a lot of times there's something as simple as just like cardboard items that like a kid will play with. And I just personally think that's not that exciting, not that fun, especially for older kids. So either parents are going to have to spend like over $50 a kit for these kinds of things, or they're getting cardboard items to play with, right? So my idea would be to make it affordable for people to be able to do these activities while still, getting a full learning experience out of it. So, yeah, I mean, mostly just, I just don't think my competitors, at least from what I've seen thus far, are doing anything that's like groundbreaking science activities, if that makes sense. Whereas it'd be nice to be able to take higher level experiments and bring that affordably into and accessible for anyone, if that makes sense, into the home environment and accessible for anyone.
Right. All right. I think we can maybe really quickly go through one example and then I'll talk about the homework. Thank you, Lena, for sharing.
Thank you.
Does Team Skywalkers, I think it is, want to go? Or anyone else? I'll stop sharing so you guys can.
I can go.
All right, sounds good.
So I don't think my teammates are here, but I guess, put it up on the screen. So our company name is Genuine Hair, and we make all natural hair care products that are specific to individuals' hair types. So as far as our target customers, we target older and younger adults, maybe naturalists, people that are individuals that are naturalists. Our products are all natural. We use no synthetics. And also, because our products are all natural and they're safe, they can also be used to assist in. Right now, we also are running studies to see if they work with people with medical conditions, with psoriasis and things like that. So with sensitive hair and scalp issues. Let's see, problems customers want to solve. So yeah, our customers want to be able to select the hair product that they want that's specific to their hair type. So if their hair is 4C, they go and select a 4C product, and that product will do, whether it's a shampoo or styling product, will do what it needs to do for their specific hair type. My customers needs to solve. So then that I just did that one. So I think I'm doing. Did I skip one? My customer wants to solve.
Nope, you did that one.
Needs to solve.
Yep.
Yeah. So for my customer needs, they need to be able to go to local drug stores or go online and, like I said, select the hair product specific to their hair type. I think, and that would eliminate the guessing game for what's for their hair type. Sometimes we go to the grocery, or not grocery store, but drugstore, and we try to select the product, but we're buying all these different products because we don't know which one's better for us. So this will eliminate that guessing game for them. Why can't my customers solve it today? They can't solve it today because there are no companies that are actually making all natural, non-synthetic products. There are companies that come close, but they're not making them specific to the hair type and targeting all classes of hair. And that's just it. That's just the fact. There's no companies doing it. The measurable outcome our customer wants to achieve. So they really just want to be able to eliminate, like I said before, the issues with the troubles with their hair that they have. If it's, from getting a cleaner hair, from selecting a shampoo that doesn't dry their hair out or that doesn't leave their hair too oily, or selecting a conditioner, they want to solve the issue and they want to do it fast and don't have to worry about if they're using the wrong product or not. And that's where I got so far. I didn't really get further than that, putting anything, but I'm sure I probably could answer questions. My primary target.
Yeah, I think that you did a good job on your your target customer. I think you have a good idea of who they are and who their interests are. I think I would be a little more specific than just like young and old people with hair on that part. But as far as, you know, being interested in natural products, you know, there's a whole segment of people that, you know, want natural, clean kind of ingredients. So I thought you did a good job on that.
Thank you.
Arnold, do you have any other comments?
I just messaged you. You should check out a company called Briogeo.
I know that company. They're
You did-
really close to all natural, but one thing they're not doing is they're not targeting each class of hair.
How many different classes of hair are there?
There are, I guess, so 4 in each class. 1, 2, 3, 4, 12.
Okay.
So they're probably the most competition I've ever seen a company come, and that company is the only company so thus far that scares us. That's like and you know they're a Black-owned business. They have the story. They are a really good company, and we've looked at their ingredients. They almost check out, and they're very transparent. They are the ones that come close, and they will let you know if they have a synthetic in their product. So I do like that about their product, and I would say that will be the competition.
Yeah, I use Briogeo, and I think they'll say like hair type, but like more generic of like curly or wavy or straight, but they don't necessarily go specific into like all of the different hair types that a person might have. So maybe that's a competitive advantage for you.
Yeah, that is. And that's why when we looked at that, that was the one thing that stood out about ours and that's the one thing that why we want to push and get ours out there, because once someone sees this idea, then they're going to do it. But the challenge is, you know, with an idea like this is that you have 12 different shampoos at this point to target all of those individuals. And you have 12 different styling products. So it's a big challenge and a hurdle, but if and when we master it, it will be essentially, you know, a monopoly, because I mean other companies will start doing it, but I mean our goal is to be a powerhouse when it comes to hair, period.
Understand. I like the thinking big. I think some of the challenges will be, like you said, well, if you got 12 hair care, 12 shampoos and 12 gels, and you plan to sell that wherever you plan to sell them at, if it's at a brick and mortar store, they're probably going to be pushback about having shelf space for 24 items just for your company.
Have you heard of a company, I don't know if they're still called this, but Function of Beauty, where it's basically you do this quiz to figure out what your hair needs are, and then you essentially like mix it yourself. Like there's a base product and then little packets based on what you want, what your hair need is that you mix in. I will say I use that, and not all the ingredients were natural and clean, and I didn't think it worked, but that is maybe, so you don't have to create all of these different products. You kind of create a base and then like mix-ins. So that's another company that's doing something that's more like tailored to individual people, but it's definitely not perfect.
Thank you for that. I'll look them up. We actually had a discussion about doing something like that, and after discussing the challenges, it's still up in the air. We're considering it, but there has also been another company that done something like that, and they had a storefront. This was years ago. I can't remember the name, but it wasn't too successful. But just getting those ingredients, the challenge is when you ordering these specific ingredients and non-synthetics, to get them in bulk is very expensive, and to get them and to put them out, a lot of suppliers are very it's just it's a challenge to get through to the supplier. So they are really doing a lot of different checks to get them. So to get at that type of quantity, we would hate to run into those type of issues where we can't deliver. But
Right.
but yeah, that is a good idea that we were considering too.
All right, awesome. Thanks for sharing. I know some people probably got to hop off. We're a little over time, so I think we'll just get on so I can tell you what the homework is and just a little preview of the next workshops. Let me. All right. So just kind of to recap the little activity that we did. So all the answers that you listed to those questions are assumptions that you have made about your business. So what would happen if one of those assumptions or all of them were proven wrong that could cause your business to fail? So for example, you think that your customer has a problem that they don't really have. Like you've assumed that they have this problem and you built your whole business model and your idea around it, but then you go and talk to them and they don't actually even have that problem, or they're not willing to pay you to solve it for them. So when you go into your customer interviews, you want to have these assumptions in your mind of, this is what we believe about our business, but what if our target customer doesn't jive with what we think? So that's just something to keep in mind as we're going into the homework and then the next workshop. So your homework is to submit the napkin drawing that you did earlier, or do a new one if you'd rather do that, to the BMC email, and then also those questions that you just answered, submit those as well. And then the additional homework is reading page 11 through 20 of Talking to Humans, which the text is pretty big. It'll take you maybe an hour or so to get through those pages, or it's not 11 to 20. Is it? It's 11 to 39. Sorry, I made a typo. I was like, that's only 9 pages. It's 11 to 39. It's part 1 of it. So there's a breaking point that's pretty clear. So this is a book it's a great book. It's pretty short. It'll help you learn how to talk to customers in a way that actually gives you insight into who they are, what their problems really are, and you're not necessarily leading them to answer in a way that you think they should, or to get the answer that you want just to validate your idea. So we'll break that into 2. You can go ahead and read the whole thing if you want. It's pretty short, but just before the next workshop, which is on the 4th, November 4th, make sure you get the first part of it read. And so for the next workshop, which will be on November 4th, we're going to have a guest speaker, which is Glimpse, who was the first place winner last year. So they'll share their story of going through the competition, and even before the last year's competition, they kind of went through some other things, their experience as entrepreneurs on campus, and then what's happened as a result of them winning the competition last year and what they've done since then. And then they'll also talk about how they talk to their customers and what they learned from their customers, which will kind of segue into the lecture portion, which is about how to conduct your customer interviews so that you're prepared to go out there and start asking people questions after that workshop. So does anybody have any questions before we go tonight?
So where is this PDF?
Lola just put it in the chat, and I'll also afterwards email out both the business assumptions exercise and that PDF, in case. I know some people are on their phones, and I'm not sure that you can get files when you're on your phone in Zoom.
Okay, and also, is that's where we send in the homework? Because I don't think, were we supposed to send the other homework to an email?
Yep. Yeah, the Canvas send to that email as well, and it's okay if you send it now.
Okay.
And we'll still give feedback on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, so all of the homework that'll be due, if there's anything to send, it'll go to that email address. And Murillo will be on the other side of that, and he will be the person answering you. Any other questions?
So I jumped in a bit late, but I just want to know the deadline to submit the business model.
The business model canvas from the last workshop, there's not really a deadline. You can send that whenever.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Yep, we'll give you feedback on it.
Sure.
All right, so feel free if you have any other questions to email the BMC email, or if you're on the Discord, you can just post the questions in there. I try to check that periodically to see if there are questions and answer them. If not, everybody have a good night and stay safe.